All right, hello Tide fans. Welcome to Tide Talk. I'm your host, Sean Taylor. I'm here with my two buddies, Jimmy Messick and Maurice Booth. Game one under our belts. We're going to dive into that. Go ahead and just jump into it. Game one under our belts. Got a road win, SEC road win. Can't really complain about that. I know there's a lot of conversation to be had. I know you're chomping at the bit. He's already at the edge of his seat.
There's no doubt. He's
ready to go.
I just got a bad back, that's all. So
that's what I was thinking.
Right.
It was your back.
Yes.
Is that from the game and you hurt your back?
It's something. It's old cheerleading injury.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. But, it's always good to get a win on the road, especially in the SEC.
Because the crowd was
phenomenal. We tuned them out.
Right.
Right.
It's almost like you couldn't hear them. That's how focused they were. Anyway, I'm sorry.
Right.
Go ahead.
It's always good to get a road win. Every game's going to be SEC this year, but it's always good to start out the season with a road win. I know we're going to break a lot of things down. I want let's talk first, Jimmy, just about the overall your kind of 2-minute overview of what you thought about the game. I'll go to you, and then we'll kind of just chat about it together.
Sure. Well, first thing, 14 straight opening day wins.
That's right.
I think it's 92 straight against non-ranked opponents. So we can hang our hats on that. As far as the game is concerned, I mean, look, man, obviously we're going to take a lot away from the game. First game of the season. Breaking out first half, I thought was pretty dominant. Missed a few tackles. Really, if you want to, get down to it. But other than that, I thought the first half we played really well. Mac Jones, I think, was on time with everything. I mean, his deep balls were just laying it out there perfectly, which I thought you and I at least expected that from him. But
was it what you expected? Was the first half what you expected?
Kind of, sort of. I mean, for the most part, yes. I really thought we'd put on more points in the first half. Honestly, I thought we'd have put the the hammer down a little bit more. But that goes back to our style's a little bit different. Yes, we threw the ball how many times, but still, how many times we hand the ball to Harris too, and Robinson. So I think it was a little bit more balanced, which means the clock's going to run a little bit more. I think one drive we did score in 3 plays, but most of the drives were sustained drives, so we took a little more time off the clock, which I think is going to help ultimately in the long run. But I really thought we would have scored more points in the first half. But overall, I was fairly pleased until that whistle blew in the third quarter. So,
well, my first thoughts are Jimmy just doubled his words from last week.
There is no doubt.
Way to go. We're proud of you.
Hey, is the camera rolling? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just making sure. We got to get that on camera.
Yeah, exactly.
I thought it was everything that I thought it would be. It was, I won't say predictable. I wasn't surprised really by anything. 2 players that did surprise me, but as far as team effort, I thought offensive line played phenomenal, especially the first half. Intensity really dropped off in the second half, not just by the second teamers, but by the starters as well. I don't think it was anything that they should have got back to Tuscaloosa and felt really great about themselves. I thought it was an average.
Right.
An average win, an average effort. It wasn't the best.
Y'all ready for my take on?
I've been waiting since
Sure.
Saturday.
I was wondering. Honestly, as I open the show, it's a road win.
Yes.
It's an SEC road win.
Right.
I think we all anticipated that we were going to beat Missouri. I'm a little disappointed. I'm a little disappointed in a couple of aspects, and we'll talk about those and break them down. I just expected, as I mentioned before the show, a little more dominance. I expected more dominance defensively, although there's a lot of questions defensively because we've got some young guys playing. But everything that I read and the people that we have out there and the 5 stars and getting Dylan Moses back, I just expected a little more dominance.
I thought that as far as, we were texting the other night. Jimmy, of course, didn't respond. But I'm done. I'll leave you alone for now. I thought that was the most talented group of defenders I saw all day Saturday. And I thought it was the most physical that I had seen for the past 3 weeks. Now, like I said, it dropped off for whatever reason. but I saw some serious intensity those first couple of series by that defense.
No doubt.
So
Reminded me of the
Yes.
defenses of old.
very much.
You know, so the first few series, I thought, man, this is what I was expecting. But let me jump and finish what I expected our offensive line to be a little more dominant. Now, yes, man, we threw the ball when we wanted to, and Mac Jones was really good. I mean, but you know, it's tough to not be good with Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith, and look, John Mechie. John
Yes.
Mechie's a really good talent.
Yes.
You know, if you watch his first catch of the night, it was a kind of a bad throw by Mac Jones, but Mechie made a really good catch for 22 yards. But I expected us to be able to just dominate the line of scrimmage and run the football better. Najee Harris, I mean, he did well, but look, I honestly believe a lot of that was based on what he was getting, not some gaping holes that were there. And this guy's 6'3", 230 pounds. He's going to pick up some yards. I just was expecting us to just blow them off the line of scrimmage and run the football easier. I think he ended up with 92 yards or something like that.
Yes.
But those were some hard 92 yards on 17 carries.
Right.
Well, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
You know, again, I mean, I just rewatched it before we came in here tonight, and first half, I mean, I have to disagree a little bit. I mean, yes, he was getting hit the line of scrimmage on 2 or 3 runs, but I mean, there was 3, 4, 5 runs he had where he wasn't getting touched till he was 8, 10 yards down the field. I mean, he had, I don't know, like I say, several 10, 12, 13, 14, 15-yard runs in that first half, because I just watched it. So, I mean, could it have been a little bit better? I mean, sure, I guess. You know, matter of fact, there was a time where on the second possession we scored. It was a 2nd and goal from like the 2-yard line, 3-yard line. He got tackled. Again, just rewatched it. I mean, there's a hole that Maurice could have ran through this way. In other words, that lead blocker,
Must have been a big hole.
he followed that lead blocker, and instead of cutting this way to the hole that Maurice could have walked through, he went the wrong way. Of course, we scored on the next play. So, again, man, were we as dominant maybe as we could have been, but still, the first half anyway, we
And maybe that's just my, crimson glasses being on and the expectation.
I think you probably are expecting too much, but I think the linebackers were playing up and they were wanting or challenging Mac to throw it, and
which is what you said. I'm going to point that out.
I'm not one to say that I wasn't wrong, but I'll go ahead and say it. You were right. Mac Jones, to me, looked incredibly impressive. And trust me, anybody thinks that I'm, all this pie in the sky, whatever Crimson put on. No, I'm the biggest critic. Mac Jones, to me, looked like a really
quality quarterback.
More than quality. Yeah. I like his stature. He looks like he's added some muscle. He's added a little bit of weight. He looked good. And I know it doesn't really matter. Nick probably already had his mind made up. But I don't really think there was any type of quarterback competition. Looking at nothing against Bryce Young. He's a 18-year-old kid. I'm not knocking him. But Mac Jones looked good.
I mean, listen, we knew. I mean, I think we all really I know we wanted him to be good.
You're right.
Because we're Alabama fans and
threw a good ball.
We wanted, but listen, man, when I watched him over and over again, even as a backup to Tua, I mean, the guy just threw the ball. It came out of his hand really well. He throws a very catchable ball.
But can you tell that he was getting more comfortable in the pocket as the game went on?
Touchdown pass to Waddle where he's got a guy breathing. I mean, right in his face, which is hard to do.
He stood in there.
He stood in there and delivered a strike. Now, a dime.
And he didn't throw off his back foot, which is the one thing that all quarterbacks do when they know they're going to get hit. I'll say all, but most of them
take a little bit off.
Yep, but no, it was beautiful.
Also too, I wonder, because that offensive line, for the most part, he didn't really get hit at all. I mean, he did. I mean. But
that's correct.
Was there any sacks against him? I don't think any.
No official quarterback hurries.
So you can.
No official.
I mean, it's real easy to get comfortable back there when you know you're not going to get hit in the mouth while you're standing there.
Well, did you hear his
So-
interview? I mean, he basically said, look, you know, I kind of like the contact because it gives me energy. But he did say, when you got the best offensive line up there in front of you,
Right.
you know, it
Makes it
you
easier.
have a little bit of confidence back there knowing that you're not going to get hit a lot.
Well, in your criticism of the offensive line, that's one thing I'll support them on is the fact that they gave him plenty of time to throw,
Yeah.
and I think he owes a lot to them.
And listen, let's give Missouri a little bit of credit. Look, they put some guys up there. They put the linebackers in some gaps and gave us some different looks as far as blitzes. I watched a couple of times when they broke it down, you know, and they're sending the guy, you know, they did some good things. I thought the line did a pretty good job from a pass blocking perspective because Matt did have a lot of time to throw the ball. And look, as I've said before, you give him some time with the talent that he has, my gosh, it's going to be difficult. And I was really, really impressed, like I said, with John Mechie. We were already impressed with Smitty and with Waddle. Everybody knew that, and so did Missouri.
Right.
You know, they came out putting somebody over the top with Waddle. I mean, you watch the first catch that he made was a phenomenal catch.
Yeah.
You know, in the middle of two guys. They knew that, but now teams are going to have to look out for Mechie.
Well, they made a good point during the game, which I kind of thought of, and they stated it, the fact that they ran scout team together, Mag and Mechie, they
That's right.
develop a relationship.
That's right.
And so I'm hoping that it's not too strong because you don't want to forget about the other two, which
That's
are
right.
All-Americans.
Yeah.
Well, we were wondering though last week who that third guy was going to be, and we knew Mechie was going to be the starter, but still we didn't know if he was going to get the ball or not.
Right.
And so I was very
And he had
pleased.
2 catches, one of 22 and one of 24. I think he had, you know, again, his first catch was very impressive. It was a not so great throw. He showed really good hands over the middle. You know, that's never, most receivers don't really particularly care for going over the middle, but he caught the ball really, really well. So, you know, again, I do agree and will admit that maybe my expectation was a little skewed, if you will, for wanting to see us just dominate. But I do agree from a passing game perspective. Man, I thought we looked really, really well. Yes, we're going to be able to run the football, and we'll talk about this in just a couple minutes. What did we really show? You know, later on, I don't know. We've discussed that before. But we're going to take a break. We're going to come back and break down that a little bit more. We're also going to break down the defense. We're going to talk about, you know, the guys that were out there, some youth. There was some youth out there, and I thought we did some good things. So let's take a quick break on behalf of Bob English and State Farm. We'll be right back,
Hey,
Tide
Bob.
fans.
How are you?
Bob.
Hello,
That's right.
Bob.
What's up,
Hold
Bob?
your seats, Tide fans. We'll be right back with Tide Talk.
Enjoy the good times a little more with the right plan. As your State Farm agent, I am here to help you protect your dreams and loved ones with life insurance. With over 60 years combined State Farm experience, call me or any of my team to find out which options are best for you. Another way, we're here to help life go right.
All right, welcome back, Tide fans. We broke the offense down a little bit. We talked about what we all thought, what we saw. What we expected. We kind of expected we were going to be able to score. I mentioned before that I wanted to see more dominance on both sides. And I think in the first half, we did dominate. Man, those first 2 possessions, I mean, I was so fired up about just the aggression, the intensity.
Yeah.
The intensity that we appeared to have. And I was like, this is Alabama football. This is what we're accustomed to. Do you think that we let off the gas because we were up? Do you think?
Can I take this
Sure,
one?
please.
Okay. First of all, I don't think that the Alabama coaching staff ever wants to take the foot off the gas. So the fact that the defense altogether had a letdown, I think that comes from being up and then getting kind of too comfortable with the environment and the situation. Anybody could tell that the intensity dropped down dramatically in the second quarter, and then especially in the fourth quarter. I don't know what happened to it, to the fact that it was completely different. Now, I'm not knocking them because they kept them out of the end zone.
Right, that's right.
But then again, this is Missouri, which was one of the worst offenses in the country last year. They hired the guy from App State, and he made some changes. They looked okay. And that quarterback's a big kid for them, Robinson. So he looked okay. But that defense, as far as those first two series, the way the defense was flying around, man,
Gotta have
Right.
that was
more.
there was some Tylenol being passed around.
I think we saw what we're very capable. I mean, what we're capable of in this defense. I think, and a couple of things that I took away from it. One, Dylan Moses is everything that we thought he was going to be. At least that first game, or for first game back from an injury. I mean, he was flying all over the place. I mean, it felt like him and Christian Harris were like making every tackle, in the first few
Right.
possessions. I think we talked about this through text, but Christian Harris not being able to worry about making calls and who's getting. Man, he just had his ears pinned and he was just flying. I mean,
Don't break your arm patting yourself on the back.
he was
but go
flying
ahead.
all over the place. So I was very impressed with those two guys. Some of the missed tackles, and that could be too. I thought about this. How much tackling did we do? This whole, COVID thing, and how much contact did we have? I think we had maybe just a couple of scrimmages. So I don't know. I know that that's something that can be fixed for sure. The tackling. At least I hope it can be. But that's those are the two main things. And then minus that or plus that was the defensive line. I'm still waiting and hoping to see something more out of them.
What?
Maurice.
Where's that?
Maurice.
Yes.
Is that the missed tackles? Is that Golding?
It's no. That to me is all position coach, because the one thing that you have to do during first thing that you have to do after stretching is your individuals and individual, as you know as a former coach, you go over techniques. It's repetitive. So So when you go in there to you know exactly where to put your shoulder, you can't use your head anymore, you wrap your arms. That's 100% position coaches. So like one of us was saying the other night, arm tackling, that got a little tiresome because that's not Alabama football, and that's not what Nick has always now again, I think they showed in those first couple of series and a couple, not saying that they didn't do it again, but if you go back to when Saban was first hired, he talked about being physical and, man, I don't want to play this team again. Right. That's exactly what I thought of.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
So for the life of me, I don't know why it dropped down as far as the intensity, but I thought there were some good players. I thought some that really, really surprised me, that made me go, I want to watch this kid some more.
I'm really excited. Yes, we did talk about it. I'm really excited to see Christian Harris progress.
That was my biggest.
I mean, and come on. Let's give the guy some credit. He's thrown in there as a freshman, true freshman,
To call it.
to make calls, and, in front of 102,000 people on a Saturday, and so. You can imagine that he is probably thinking more than he's playing, So
that guy gets to the ball as quick as anybody.
Well, he's a former DB.
Right. That's what I'm saying. He plays like a defensive back, and you can tell he is quick to the ball, and I like it.
He's been to the weight room a couple of times, and his the other night it was more just reaction. It wasn't thinking. He was reactive, and he was there, and you knew when he got there.
Can I tell you who it reminded me of? This is, and you guys will agree. Do you remember when Reggie Ragland was a senior and he was the defensive captain, and Reuben Foster was the other linebacker,
right,
who couldn't ever think enough to be able to call the defense, but Reggie Ragland was making the calls, and they were turning Foster loose.
Yes.
He was playing sideline to sideline. I mean, that's what it reminded me
Just
of.
letting his athleticism take over.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's what it reminded me of. Dylan Moses was out there confidently pointing people in the direction and making calls, and Christian Harris was going after the football.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. When he got there, usually the play ended.
Yeah, that's exactly right. He
Right.
didn't miss many tackles.
Right.
He didn't miss many tackles. I was really impressed, and it was a quiet kind of impressive, but the freshman, 31, Will Alexander. I mean,
Anderson.
Anderson. I'm sorry. Yeah,
I know what you meant.
Will
We know what you meant.
Anderson. I mean, listen,
That's a strong
the two
kid.
hits that he made on the option play
Man.
for running back, it reminded me of the Clowney from South Carolina when he hit the guy from Michigan. I mean, that it was brutal. I mean, he was lowering,
And he
the
looks
boom
like
on
he's
guys.
carrying a little attitude with him.
Yeah.
He's playing with an attitude.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Well, we mentioned we wanted to see him play.
we wanted to see the attitude. That's right.
and minus a couple of I guess if you will, freshman mistakes where he was losing pursuit, that kind of thing, some of that stuff. But I'm okay with that. He'll learn from those things. But yeah, man, he was impressive. I'm looking forward to watching him play
There were
for
a couple
sure.
plays I saw where he was uncertain of where he should be based on
Right.
the offense. But whenever it was coming my way,
Yeah.
he was there.
That's right. And I think that's just a freshman.
It is.
You got to learn.
You correct
those
that in the
things.
film room.
And listen, when you listen to Nick Saban said the offense threw a lot of things at him, threw a lot of formations, did a lot of stuff to try and confuse them. And so, you can understand that a freshman may get confused out there. But at the end of the day, as you said, I agree. When it came his way, it was putting a stop to it.
Right.
And so I do agree, Jimmy, really quick before we go to break. I would like to see more from the defensive front. You didn't hear DJ Dill's name called a whole lot.
Nope.
You didn't hear Fedarian Mathis's name called a whole lot. You didn't hear LeBron Ray, surprisingly. You didn't hear his name called a whole lot. Now, from a coaching perspective, were they doing the things up front that they needed to do so that Harrison Moses could go make plays?
They
I mean,
didn't,
a lot of times
they didn't have a whole lot of yards rushing.
a lot of times that's what they're supposed to do. Fill a gap, take on two blockers, let a linebacker free to make plays.
Well, watching the game again for the second time, that's one area I wanted to pay more attention to, because when you're watching it live, it's like
Right.
there's so many things
Trying to
going
see
on.
what's going on.
So, yeah, there was some of that. Some of our defensive front guys standing their blockers up or standing the offensive line up, causing some chaos in the middle.
Right.
Running backs having to bounce outside the quarterback, and then there's Moses and Harris making plays. So some of that was the case. But there was also times we got kind of gashed right up the gut, and the guys were just running through holes. So. Again, I'm looking forward to a little bit of improvement on that
And I
part of the
think
ball.
that will come. I think that Saban has a pretty good grasp on what took place. So, I do believe that we'll make some adjustments and see some of the things, and we'll learn from film. I mean, everybody learns. That it's what my coach used to always tell me: the eye in the sky don't lie.
Well, it's great that Saban may see it, but he ain't the defensive coordinator.
Well,
So
he may not be the defensive coordinator, but
he's
he has.
now. I will say this, so I get to be right for once. You did text the other night stating the same concerns that I've been
Yes.
saying.
That's
So I'm just saying there's going to be some bigger tests.
that's right. And one's coming this weekend, and we're
But
going
it's,
to talk about
it's
it.
not going to come against LSU.
Yeah, one's coming.
Oh!
We got to make sure we talk about that too, the one-hit wonders, because anyway, we're going to take a short break on behalf of Bob Inglis and State Farm. Hold your seats, Tide fans. We'll be right back with Tide Talk.
In life, some things just go together, like a burger and fries, and home and auto insurance from State Farm. So make it a combo. Combining your home and auto insurance could save you time and money. And who doesn't like that? Just call me, Bob English, or any of my experienced hometown team and find out how you could start saving today. It's just another way.
All right, welcome back, Tide fans. We were talking right before the break about, just the fact that Man, LSU had a phenomenal year last year, and they turn around and open the season this year with a loss. And when's the last time that that's happened for Alabama? And that's what I've said over and over and over again to my friends or to people that want to pick and jab at Alabama. You just don't see that happen. Every single year we are in the conversation for the national championship or for the playoffs. Every year we're in the conversation, and you just don't see that type of letdown. I think you stated when the show started, 92 consecutive wins against unranked opponents. I mean, that's basically 10 years, 9 to 10 years, seasons. You just don't see that happen, and it's difficult. Go ask LSU. It's difficult to motivate players. And we talked about it at the break. Losing coaches, losing players. We have to do that every year. Guys leaving early.
Well, heck, this year, even though Saban said last year that they still hadn't recovered from 2 years prior to losing the secondary, we started 4 new people in the secondary.
Yeah.
And one of them,
Malachi Moore's a true freshman.
True freshman.
Yeah.
True freshman.
And then
one returning starter back there, which
Battle is a sophomore.
Yeah.
Battle is a
Not red shirts.
sophomore.
But
right.
So kudos to, as much as we get on the secondary for not being Dre Kirkpatrick or D. Milner or Ha Ha Clinton Dix.
Right, or Mika Fitzpatrick.
These guys are stepping in and they're doing their best. I get that. I'm not trying to knock them. I know that we have a standard. But if they are able to stick around for just a second year.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, we've had a couple that start 1 year. I mean, it's their 3rd year and they couldn't get on the field, but then they get on the field and then they're in the NFL.
That's right.
So
I mean, so it's what we face and have faced for years and years. Guys leaving early, coaches taking, coordinators that are taking head coaching jobs, and that change in that coaching carousel. But it all boils down to we pull it together and we're in the talk, every year. And I just think I think it's important to note. It's important to note that just because of how difficult that is to do.
Well, that's one of the reasons why, as Tide fans, we should be really excited again about this year, because for the first time in forever, we didn't have that, at least the coaching carousel.
That's right.
I mean, granted, there should have been one that maybe we should have had. We should have lost.
I'm good.
Maybe if you have a certain guy on the
There's
panel.
somebody in the waiting.
But
there's one position or coaching position that's safe. But anyway, I'll get off of that. But yes, you're right.
You're right.
So
Yeah, I mean, it is exciting, not just from player personnel, but coaching, because we didn't have a huge turnover. And so I agree, Jimmy. I think that's really important.
Another thing, I know that this is the Bama show, but one thing, and it will happen to every team that's successful. Clemson is one that hasn't had the turnover,
that's right.
and right now Ohio State hasn't, but it'll come, because whenever there's those storied programs that are struggling, they're going to find somebody at one of those schools to come in and that what you don't mention, or what isn't really mentioned all the time, is if you lose a Sarkisian or somebody like that goes and becomes.
That's right.
He takes a few other assistants, which is fine. I mean, because they should want to elevate up, but he takes other assistants with them, and so that they can become the OC or the DC. So that adds to our rebuilding, and it's kudos to Saban for always having
putting something
a
together.
plan together. Right.
But listen, I agree with you, Maurice. I mean, Clemson's had the same coaching staff for the past 5 years.
Well, some of their kids are on the team and they're grew up there, and they're like, well, I'm fine making $2 million a year being here.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it is very critical when you're having to. It's chemistry and trust and all of those things, and so I agree. So going on to this week, we a little bit more difficult opponent, I believe. Jimmy, I think you stated earlier, and I think you're spot on. You believe that Texas A&M overlooked Vanderbilt, which is the reason that game was
without a doubt
was as close as it was. 17-12 was the final score. They were looking ahead to this game coming up this week in Alabama. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, I guarantee you they were game planning for Alabama this past week and just totally looked over Vanderbilt for the most part. And that's just me. I personally think, and I could be proven wrong, I personally think that A&M is the second best team in the West this year. They didn't show it. They didn't show it this past weekend. Why? I'm telling you, they were looking at the next opponent.
I think you may be right, Jimmy. We may be talking about this next week. We may be talking about the fact that they overlooked Vanderbilt and to prepare for Alabama.
I think Jimmy may be wrong.
No, really?
There ain't no way.
I'm going to go out on a limb here. No, I really think that Jimbo Fisher really hasn't lived up to expectations and his salary. And I don't take anything away from Vanderbilt because every other year it seems like they can put together a defense that can stand up to you no matter where. And they call it that lunch pail mentality that he tries to instill. Coach Mason tries to instill in them. But I don't know because I expected a lot out of Kellen Mond, their quarterback. Yeah. Maybe it was a second-year jinx or whatever, but he just didn't show it, and he didn't show it the other night. I don't know if he's trying to do too much. Now, he is right now, in my opinion, their best offensive player because they can't run the ball. And so they're going to have to try to throw it on us.
Yeah, and in trying to throw it, they've lost a lot of talent.
Yes.
From the wide receiver perspective. I was reading an article today about the wide receivers that went to the NFL and then they had one opt out.
Yes.
And then they had another guy that did not play against Vanderbilt who's supposed to be their number 3. So he was not as blessed as Mac Jones to have the people to throw to.
Right.
And they admitted that they were going to struggle running the football. They didn't have a Najee Harris or a Trey Sanders or
Brian Robinson.
Which we got to talk about the Trey Sanders thing.
That may have to be the next show.
Shall I digress? But I do agree. I think this will be a bigger test. Now, fortunately, we get to play at home, and I don't know what that means under the circumstances of COVID. I don't.
25,000 screaming Bama fans.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Well, I'm
loud and proud, baby.
Outside of the game, of course, I love the game. I'm interested, and we haven't seen any articles on it because of everything that's going on. I want to see what the stadium
The new
looks like.
stadium.
Yeah, they put in some of the. Then they build in like dugout seats in the end zones.
Yeah.
I want to see that on it. I know they took some seating away, but it's supposed to be really nice, and I'd like to see it.
Yeah, the atmosphere will be a great atmosphere. New Bryant-Denny, changes that were made, much less people obviously, but still, just like Saban said in his press conference, the guys are still coming to play and to perform, and they have to be able to do that without any outside factor motivating them. They got to be able to be motivated on their own, and I agree. I think our guys will be motivated.
And I really think as the season goes on for most every team, some will cash it in, but for teams like us, we'll get used to the crowd not being, then you're allowed to focus more just on, as Saban likes to say, do your job.
Yeah, I agree. Couple of things. I want to talk about Trey Sanders. I was a little disappointed, but we definitely got to give some time to Reichert in the kicking game because we made a field goal.
Yes, Sheriff.
And, Sheriff Taylor, he's going to be wanting to know and wanting to hear about that. Listen, we flipped the field a little bit when we punted. We didn't have a Scott back there kicking it 50-plus yards, but we did do a pretty good job flipping the field, and we didn't have to punt a lot, but the few times that we did, I think we did an okay job. I didn't even recognize the punter, the guy that was the starting punter. I didn't even recognize him when they ran him out there the first time. I was like, who?
Walk on freshman.
Walk on, that's right.
Did he get a Hoover? He's from Birmingham, wasn't he?
Maybe.
I know they said it, but I don't recall. I was too busy saying, who is this guy and where did he come from?
Right.
Well, I was surprised to see that we used 2 kickers. The one, I don't even know the kid's name that was kicking off for us. He did a really good job of kicking the ball off. Of course, Richard, Reichert.
How they pronounce it.
Again, I'll tell you. I'll keep telling y'all this because he's going to be an All-American before he's done. But along the special teams line, here's one thing I actually wanted to talk about with Waddle. Are we ever going to see him get to return a punt?
No.
Probably not.
If you're a smart coach, no.
That's what I said.
That's going to be disappointing all year long for that joker not to
If
be
you-
able
if
to
you wanna
What we
see-
did the last time, did you notice what we did the last time?
put 2 people out
We
there.
dropped the other kid back.
That's going to be the only way we get any
Bolden.
return yards.
Bolden, the receiver, we dropped him back.
That's the only way we're going to get any return yards is to have 2 back there because they're
I
not
was-
going to kick it to Vinci. I mean, they're
was
not going to kick it to
shocked
Waddle.
The first kickoff, to be honest, that we had Smitty and Waddle back there.
Why were you shocked?
Just because, geez, the risk of injury.
Well, yeah, we've done that a
I
few
mean, not to
times.
mention when you have a stable of running backs, that are Roydale Williams and the Chase McClellan, you got these running backs. Trey Sanders, who's supposed to be this, when he said when he was going to win the Heisman as a freshman. I mean, we have these stable of running backs, and you got Smitty and Waddle back there. Now, I know they're a threat. I get it.
But don't you put the best back there? I mean, we've always done that pretty much, haven't we?
They're also everybody knows that special teams is a risk for injury.
Sure.
Somebody rolling, making a tackle and they get thrown around and they leg whip you, and I mean just anything like that. So, that kind of shocked me. But
But I also think that the one thing, the other advantage, is ball security. You let people who are used to
Handling the ball.
That's right.
So-
I agree. Which I think we've always done a fairly good job of that. Listen, I'm going to say it real quick, and we don't have a lot of time.
Hurry.
I think Bryce Young is going to be really good. The few times that he was nervous and his first time playing a college football game, but listen, the 2 balls that he threw were darts.
You're old when they show the kids' parents and they look like they could be your kids.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
I'm just telling you what Sammy
I
thought.
think we'll have plenty opportunities this year
see
to talk
him.
about him and see him more.
I
So
think he's gonna be really
he will be.
Just for the record of
Adam.
making sure we say that. All right, so predictions. Maurice, you go first. Prediction.
Oh,
Texas A&M.
well, I'm going to say 37-10.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not big on scores, trying to predict scores. I think we match up well. I mean, we should match up well really against anybody, but I honestly can see it being very similar to this past week. I think we'll control the game in the first half.
May call the dogs off because it's
Yeah.
my best friend.
I mean,
I'm gonna go 42-17. I'm gonna go 42-17. I think that we can score regularly, and I think our defense will have another opportunity to a week, watch film, get better, and I see us.
and I'll be surprised too after how we finish this last game if we don't finish it a little bit differently this
Your
week.
biggest
So
improvements is always from week 1 to week 2.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I think
Should
that'd
be.
good.
should be.
Well, it'll be fun. We'll get together again next week. The game's at 3:30, so it's an afternoon kickoff. Should be a lot of fun.
we get to come back here next
We
week.
get to come back here next week.
So the check
Sweet.
cleared.
Sweet.
So next week right here on channel 207. Also check us out on our YouTube channel. We appreciate you guys watching us, and we'll see you next week. Roll Tide.
Roll
Roll
Tide.
Tide.